Welcome to Kumbasoft DPAA tutorials. This tutorial is about managing probes with DPAA, and this has some very powerful features to it. Unlike anything you've seen anywhere else, there is no other tool that does what DPAA does and enables you to get the kind of information you can get out of the probes that DPAA provides to you. There are even things that DataPower doesn't show you when you're working with the probe. So this is extraordinarily powerful, and there are 4 videos dedicated to this process. This is just the one of how to manage probes. It doesn't go into viewing them and some other things. So you're going to want to watch the other tutorials related to probes. So be sure to set your video playback to high definition. And though some visual details may have changed since this video was created, the functionality will be the same. So to get started, what I've done is I've selected a couple of appliances and I've just selected a single domain. One powerful thing about DPAA is I'm not limited to working in a single domain at a time. I can work across many domains and many appliances. And if you've watched the other tutorials of DPAA, you've seen that ad nauseum, that every time we can go against as many things as we want to at once. Over on the Find tab, under the Objects tab, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to select 2 object types, Matching and Multi-Protocol Gateway. And then I'm going to search for all the objects of those 2 object types. Now, there seems to be a disconnect, and I think you're thinking, why did you select Matching? And it's something that we just want to show you as we're moving through the tutorial. I have a couple of multi-protocol gateways here, and notice that I've selected from more than one appliance. So I'm searching, I'm working in more than one appliance. Of course, I'm right now only working in one domain. I'm going to select any service object or objects. I can select as many as I want. And I'm going to invoke the hamburger menu over here by clicking on it. And I get a pop-up menu that gives me many different options related to features that I can execute or actions that I can do against multi-protocol gateways. And with service objects, you'll find these 5 menu options. We can enable probes. We can set the probe transaction history to some reasonable values. Now, if you wanted to set it to 33, this would not be the place to do it, but some reasonable values are available here. We can flush probes. So if, say, some other people are using probes and they're running the probes and running services and they can't modify anything and they need you to flush the probes for them, you can do that here. You can also show probes. This is the matter of the other videos that we've discussed that you'll want to watch. And we can disable the probes from here. Now, one other feature that's available that's pertinent to probes is the Manage Multi-Protocol Gateway debug triggers. Now, had I selected an XML firewall, this would say Manage XML Firewall Gateway or XML Firewall debug triggers, but this one relates to probes here. None of these others do with respect to probes. Now I'm going to select a matching object or a couple of matching objects over here, and we're going to do the same thing again. I'm going to pop the menu up. This time I'm using the right mouse button of my mouse so we can get the pop-up menu that way as well. And notice I don't have any ability to manage probe triggers or enable or disable probes. So that's because DPAA says, hey, it's not available to you when you're using matching objects. But if I go down here now and I select both types, matching and multi-protocol gateway objects, and then I pull up the menu, I get my options back. Now, if I were to enable probes for the selected service objects, which is what I just did, see, we just set debug mode for the multi-protocol gateways, notice it didn't turn probes on here. And DPAA is smart enough to know, hey, there's nothing to turn on there. So it's smart enough to know not to even try to do that. So you don't have to worry about your selections that much. DPAA is very smart. When you've turned probes on in a particular domain, you're going to see a stethoscope icon appear next to the domain where probes are turned on. So even though we're not working in this R&D domain, some other administrators may be, and maybe they have turned on probes there, and you can see right here in front of you that probes are turned on there. Of course, you could have a very busy day, you're working with probes, you're doing this, maybe you're helping developers and doing a number of things, and you've turned probes on and off, and now the developers call you and say, hey, we're done with the probes in the this domain, go turn them off, you can also go here and then go turn those probes off. That is yet a matter of another video. But the whole idea here is you see an indicator that tells you probes are turned on in a particular domain, and so we see that. Likewise, I can go disable these probes just by selecting the disable probe options, and again we get the indicator that this has happened on both appliances, and we are going to see eventually this stethoscope will go away as an indicator in this domain, as it just did, to indicate to us, okay, the probes are now turned off. So one of the other neat features that you can do, and I think it's common sense to understand what you can do in these other areas, except for the show probes, we're going to cover that in a different video, and that is the managing debug triggers. This can also be a problem, especially if you're working against many appliances, is going into there and navigating to the screen and then opening up the screen and then setting the values and then saving them, and then you got to copy and paste, and if it's a sophisticated expression, you got to copy and paste that to everyone. When you select this option in DPAA, you get a window that enables you to manage multi-protocol gateway debug triggers for all these service objects. Even if they're different types, you can work with multi-protocol gateways and XML firewalls and web service gateways all at the same time. So the whole idea here is this pulls up this screen, and I have the ability to create some debug triggers. So I'm going to click the plus button here to add a row to the table. And notice it added 2 rows. Why? Because I'm working with 2 objects. I have 2 objects selected here. Back here, when I went and pulled up this menu, it's saying, hey, we're going to be working with 2 objects. Now, one really, really neat thing about this screen in DPAA is we have this ability to synchronize changes that we make into here. And there's some number of things that we can do. This is a long talk, but there's another video on all of this. But at the end of the day, we can synchronize the changes. So let's suppose I want to go to an inbound URL and I want to type, star XYZ as an inbound URL for this probe trigger. Once I press the tab key, notice what it did on the second row down here. That's because I've synchronized changes. In other words, if you're typing an advanced regular expression here, okay, you can, when you do it, and let's suppose you're working against 10 appliances, okay, it would have just duplicated that all the way down without you having to go duplicate it on every one of those. So when you go about saving these debug triggers, it will save them back to every appliance, and you can be assured that they are all identical. You don't have to worry about, oh man, I didn't type that in right on this one. I got to go back and fix that. I'm sorry. Can you rerun the transaction again? All of that is gone in the day. Especially you got to think about this field too when you're doing an XPath expression and you type that nasty XPath expression. If you get it right the first time, or maybe you pasted it in from somewhere else, that's okay. It will duplicate it all the way down as soon as you clear that field. So that's one of the big advantages to this screen. Of course, I can finish this and then it goes back and it changes those debug triggers and sets those in there. Now, there's no indication directly that there are debug triggers set on these, on any given service object. Like I can't tell that whether or not this object has debug triggers on it. But as you know, if you've run probes a lot in DataPower, sometimes debug triggers stay in the configuration. That is, they don't get removed always. And then you're running probes and you're wondering why you're not getting any transactions. And then finally it dawns on you to go look to see if there are debug triggers. So DPAA makes this very easy in the fact that you can just go here and you can click on the debug triggers button just to say, hey, before we get started here, let me check to see if those debug triggers are there. And oh shoot, no wonder we're not getting transactions, because these debug triggers were here from the last time we did them. Well, the cool thing is I can delete debug triggers just as easily as I created them. And notice again, when I clicked on this, as soon as I cleared that field, I could have gone anywhere, but I just clicked on another row, it duplicated that. Again, I want you to imagine we're working against 10 production appliances all at once, or 10 development appliances, or whatever you may have. I just selected delete, and now what's going to happen is when I select finish, those debug triggers are just wiped out. And so I no longer have the debug triggers on this service. And again, to prove that again, I can pull this screen up and you can see that the screen will be blank. So managing debug triggers is also a very, very powerful feature when you consider all the different kinds of things that you may end up having to do with respect to working with debug and multiple appliances and multiple services across multiple domains. DPAA makes your life very, very easy here. And normally you only have to do any given thing one time and everything else is just done for you. So that's all we have for this video. You do want to go out to www.kumbasoft.com and go to the tutorial section. You're going to find 3 more videos on probes, and they have to do with the aggregated probe view. You're going to be extraordinarily interested in those videos because it is extremely powerful what you can do with DPAA and managing your probes and doing the various things of viewing probes and examining probes and understanding probes. And you even get some profiling data, you get some transaction IDs, you get some times, date and time stamps that you don't get in DataPower. So you're going to want to watch those videos. So thanks for watching and have a nice day.